Back in 2020, I remember vividly I was looking for a small compact camera, and I had actually pre-ordered the Fujifilm X100V. And being a really impatient person, I remember that camera wasn't going to be here in time for a trip I was going to do with my wife in San Francisco. So it was January 2020, and so I kept looking for an alternative to other cameras. I honestly stumbled on the Ricoh GR3 mainly because I was looking for something else, and it had just been released in 2019, so they were like readily available. And if you're relatively new to the Ricoh world, it is kind of unheard of finding these cameras in stock, even the GR3 or now the GR4. But back in 2019, early 2020, you can order one of these off of Amazon and it'll be here in a couple of days. And so that's what I did. And honestly, the Ricoh GR3 kind of changed my view on small compact cameras. I always viewed them as like toys or things that weren't really as capable. And the Ricoh GR3 ended up being my favorite camera of 2020. I shot that Ricoh GR3 for over 3 years. I ended up selling it a couple years ago, mainly because I wanted to fund other things. So when Ricoh announced the GR4, I immediately pre-ordered it. And if you watched my channel, I actually bought the GR3 a couple months ago. And even though I plan on keeping that camera as well, I bought that secondhand from a local photographer here. He kind of changed his mind about selling back the GR3. And so I kept waiting and waiting for my pre-order of the GR4. And I felt like I was waiting for it for so long that I was going to cancel the pre-order. And then the very next day, B&H confirmed my order. So like, this kind of feels like it's been a long time coming. And I honestly don't want to review this camera because I've only had it for a handful of days or 5 days. And I think it's a little too early, but I really do want to talk about like my first impressions coming from a photographer who is pretty familiar with the Ricoh GR3 and how that felt like and how kind of this camera feels different. And honestly, unless you have the Ricoh GR3 and the GR4 right next to each other, I don't think a lot of people would necessarily feel a lot of the differences just by looking at the camera. Honestly, I made a video about like my wish list of the Ricoh GR4, and what that video was more like, I knew that a lot of the things that I wanted out of the camera might be like a little out there. So like for me, on it, if I was to be like completely honest, what I wanted was a refinement of the camera. I wanted faster autofocus. I wanted some of the dust issues to go away. I just wanted the experience to be relatively the same because it's such an amazing camera for what it is and for the size of it. And cosmetically, a lot of the changes on the Ricoh GR4 versus the Ricoh GR3 are in the back of the camera and not so much in the front. And for you guys who have shot with the Ricoh GR3 and who had issues with the scroll wheel, that wheel is basically gone in this. Now it has like buttons on it. And honestly, like I thought that I would have a bigger issue of getting rid of the scroll wheel because I did use it quite a bit, but the way that the camera is laid out anyway, like everything's readily available. So it's not something that I feel like I'm missing. I think it takes a little bit of getting used to because I kind of developed muscle memory on feeling like a scroll wheel. Another big change in this camera is these buttons right here, right next to the play button. And the Ricoh GR3 is my only digital GR camera that I ever used. I know that this was implemented in like the Ricoh GR1 and GR2, I believe. And I really like it, especially for changing ISO values. Like I primarily use this camera in aperture priority mode. So like if I want to quickly change my ISO, I just press the ISO button and then I can change the ISO values, which is really nice because it makes everything really quick. Another thing that they got rid of was that toggle in the adjustment area where you could adjust different values. And I actually really like this design change because now I can actually use this camera in like manual mode if I wanted to. So like changing the aperture values and the shutter speed in the back, but it's like a multifunctional wheel. Like you can still press on it and then it'll go to like your quick menu, which I really liked about the Ricoh GR3. It's something I used all the time. And I'm glad that they kept it for the Ricoh GR4. Other than that, on first glance, like these are like the only things I kind of notice about the camera. Like it looks relatively the same. It still has that weird movie button on the side of the camera. I've never used this camera for video and I think it's still the same for this one. I haven't really tried the video and I actually don't want to because the Ricoh GR series of cameras for me it's a photo-centric camera and I don't really want to use it for video anyway. So I always change this button, and luckily you can customize a lot of these buttons, especially this button. I changed it to toggle the ND on and off and to like make the screen brighter, which has always been my preferred way of like customizing the camera. And I think I do want to make another video on customizing the camera once I have a little more experience with it. But so far I think the experience is super comfortable and like very similar to the Ricoh GR3. And with the design of this camera, I don't really want like a total redesign of this camera, because like I think what makes Ricoh GR cameras special is just the size of them. This design is so unintrusive. If you are shooting out on the street, people don't really look at you. It looks like a really like a touristy camera. So like I'm really happy that they kept the overall size of the camera. My other point and shoot camera that I own is like an original Ricoh GR1 film camera, and as you can see, like the design is very similar still, so like it still plays homage to like Ricoh cameras. One of my big like wish list items was for them to bring back a flash in the camera, and I was a little bit disappointed, to be honest, because I thought maybe they'll add on a flash for this iteration and kind of go back to like a traditional design. But honestly, like after playing around with it for a week, like missing the flash doesn't feel all that wrong, because I'm so used to it with the Ricoh GR3. And obviously, if it was up to me, I would love for the Ricoh GR series to have a flash like they did in the old film days. But honestly, like if it means keeping the design this small, like having so many great features on such a small compact size, I don't mind the sacrifice of a flash, especially now that Ricoh has designed a new flash to go along with this camera. I honestly got the flash before I even got the camera, so I've had the flash for like a month now. I haven't really used it for anything, and this week I haven't really have a lot of experience shooting with this flash as it is, so I don't really have like thoughts on it. Besides, it's a good flash. It's small, it's tiny, like you can put it on top of the camera, no problem. But so far, I like the fact that there was a compromise there. Ricoh didn't add on a flash, but they do have an accessory that kind of brings that functionality back for people that do need flash on their Ricoh GR cameras. Another change into the body was adding a snap focus mode right onto the dial here on the camera, and I don't really use snap focus all that much, to be honest. I know for a lot of Ricoh users, it's something that they really like, they snap focus, especially because the Ricoh GR3 didn't have the best autofocus, so that was kind of like the snappiest way to get a fast frame. But honestly, like again, I really like that it's being refined, taking things that people actually like and use and kind of implementing into the body is a welcome change. My number one wish list item for the Ricoh GR4 was faster autofocus. For me, that was like the biggest hurdle, and honestly one of the reasons I sold the Ricoh GR3. I sold the Ricoh GR3 back when my son was learning how to walk, and as soon as my son started to walk, he basically just ran. So the Ricoh GR3 could not keep up with him, and it was getting really frustrating because I would bring along my Ricoh GR3, and the way I would shoot, it would miss focus all the time. And obviously if I was using snap focus, I would be able to get better at it. But the way that I was shooting at the time, it wasn't something I really wanted to mess with. And after using this camera for about a week, I do want to say that the autofocus is relatively snappier, and it's actually a really welcome change, because again, it was one of the things I complained the most about this camera. So my son is 4 now, and you know, as fast as ever, and it's been able to keep up with them, especially like in like really good lighting conditions, like at the park, which is primarily where we spend a lot of our time at. So keeping up with them at the park is really good. I don't think the face autofocus is anywhere as good as like a full frame camera like Sony's, even Nikon's now. Like if you compare it to those cameras, I think you'll be a little disappointed in the face tracking. But if you're using this camera in like single point autofocus, the camera is like really, really snappy. The one thing I was the most surprised about the Ricoh GR4 is these new creative control picture profile settings, cinema green and cinema yellow. I didn't expect to like them as much as I did, and honestly, it was the reason why I checked these out so quickly was Samuel L. Street. He did a video on cinema green, the cinema green profile, and since like I was doing a lot of different shoots this week, I didn't have a lot of time to like play around with my own settings onto the camera, so I copied his cinema green settings, tweaked them slightly for my taste, and to be like frank and completely honest, like this is the first time that a picture profile that comes straight out of the camera is exactly how I want the JPEGs to look. I don't want to mess with it too much after the fact, especially for like my family stuff or my personal stuff. Like these picture profiles, they look so good straight out of the camera, and actually posted a couple of them on Threads already. And so like the colors that come straight out of this camera for these picture profiles, they just look so good that I don't think there's a lot that I could do to them that will make them look any better than it actually already looks, because It has like the right amount of contrast and saturation, and like the color shifts are really nice. Battery life on this is also really improved. I got the criticism of the battery life of the Ricoh GR3 because it was really bad. Like 200 shots per battery was not good, but those batteries are so small that I always carried like 2 or 3 with me and it was never an issue. But I do agree that 200 shots per battery is really not ideal, no matter the size of the battery. My wife and I took a trip up to Mammoth Lakes and I only have one battery because you can't even find these batteries on sale anywhere. Like they're all back ordered. So I only have the one battery. I took one battery and I thought I'll just charge it with my battery bank. But the way that I shoot is never like on burst mode. Like I think for the whole day I shot maybe 200 photos and I still had 2 bars left, which for Ricoh is like a great change in battery life. It's not something that I would feel like I would notice, but it's definitely an improvement on the battery life. In terms of accessories, there's not a lot of stuff out right now besides the flash, which I really like. I still have to play around with it for a little bit longer, but I really like the size of the flash, the way it looks on the camera, and it's super small, so like I can put it easily in a bag. So I really like the Ricoh GR flash. I've never been a big fan of putting like thumb grips on this camera, and although it's like a small change between the Ricoh GR4 and the GR3, the indentation for your thumb is ever so slightly bigger. So like for me who has smaller hands, like it's actually pretty comfortable. The grip on the front, obviously it's not going to be as big as like the full frame camera or like even the Fujifilm X100 but for us who have really small hands, I think it's plenty comfortable, and it's a camera that I really like just carrying around like this. One thing that is obviously kind of going around on threads and online is this Apple strap, in which the minute I saw it, I thought that would be perfect, and it is. Like I really love the look of this. I really love olive green, and I mean green in general, I guess, because I'm also wearing a green sweater. But this camera strap for this size camera is super comfortable. I find that I'm fairly confident that it's robust enough, and honestly, I really love the look of it. The way I've been carrying the Ricoh GR4 since I bought it is basically with the strap and my original Ricoh GR1 bag that I use for my film camera. So like I've been just using this in here and kind of wearing it like crossbody. So like I haven't been bringing a bag or anything like that the last couple of days. So that's basically how I carry this camera, just on a strap with like a little carrying case. And honestly, this is all you need for the Ricoh GR4. And it's something that I missed about having such a small compact camera. I do want to make a long-term review on this camera. And honestly, I don't like making reviews on stuff that I just had for a couple days. I like to get a good hands-on feel of what the camera is like before I make judgment on it. But honestly, like I'm already a big fan of the Ricoh GR series, that I think in terms of like autofocus, battery life, like it still has all those great things. The image stabilization has always been good. It's great here. It's slightly improved. The price hike on this camera is insane, because when I bought the Ricoh GR3, I think I got it for a little over $900, and this camera is $1,500. And it's not just Ricoh, like all these cameras are going up in price. Like inflation in the US and in the world is insane. So like I'm not gonna sit here and be like, you should buy a Ricoh GR4 because it's such a great camera, because it is a great camera, but I can't in good faith or tell people to spend all this money on a new camera just because it's new. So I think it really depends on your budget, and also like what you want in a camera. If you're like me, who like works professionally as a photographer, videographer, or who has a YouTube channel, like I think I'm privileged enough to be able to try out new gear, because it's something that I do use on a regular basis as a professional. But you know, for me, at the price point, I think it really depends on your shooting style or what you want. If you want a full frame camera, a small camera, a hybrid camera, like there's so many things out there that the options are out there if you're looking for something very specific. And I know that this is not like an answer people like, but I think that's the way that these things should be. Like blanket statements about cameras, I think they're not very helpful. And as long as like you're not overstretching your budget or just getting a camera because someone says it's good, like I think if you're looking for a new camera, I think the Ricoh GR4 is, I think, obviously a worthy upgrade to the Ricoh GR3. So let me know what you think of the Ricoh GR4, if you're coming from a Ricoh GR3, if you ordered a Ricoh GR4, what your experience has been like. I haven't seen a lot of things online. I think a lot of these cameras are back ordered. So as someone who was a big fan of the Ricoh series, I really wanted to see if there was anything out there while I waited for my camera, and I didn't really see anything besides like a lot of first reviews from when the camera was announced. So yeah, if you have any experience, like please leave them in the comment section below. If you're a Ricoh GR3 series, are you upgrading from that camera? If not, why not? If you're not subscribed to the channel, please subscribe for more videos like this, and I'll see you next time.